Can you hear me? So first of all, I want to say a big thank you for coming out tonight. I'd like to say a big thank you to Anders and his partners and ikonhouse and congratulate them on their new project. So I'm going to keep it very fast and very light this evening. It's not going to be a heavy lecture, but I feel very lucky to be here because in this room I have some really good friends. I've got Floor and Anna and Lauren and Oliver, Jana here as well, so thank you so much for coming. So my talk this evening is to share with you some of my own philosophies about my work, design, and life, some of the projects that we've been doing around the world, some of them built, some of them not built, but all focus on this passion of mine called cybertecture. And I'm trying to get across a message to you tonight that the world has really changed, and the way in which we can design the world is really fundamentally changing the fabric of mankind through architecture, through design, through space, through furniture, through the technologies. So I'd like to start off by saying that we're all on this little planet, and this planet is evolving so fast, and it's a miracle of a place. And the way in which we see our planet has fundamentally changed so quickly, because in fact, it looks a bit like this now. So this is a little diagram that somebody generated of all of the servers that is created now to connect together to create the global internet. And we're at this moment in time where technology, through design, is now touching billions and billions of people on this planet, allowing us to design incredibly different lives for people. And this has always been really in par with our other extreme talents, which is this ability to build. If you look at humankind, the way in which we've sculpted our cities, sculpted our buildings, our highways, our infrastructure, the ability to build has been a driver for how we progress and how we design. But in many ways, we've had our ups and downs. So during the 1960s, there was a big push, there was a big impetus to evolve and innovate, and we went to the moon. And I think after that, there was a little bit of a lull, and then we had some economic crashes, but the internet arrived, and now we're dreaming to design a journey to this, which is Mars, and we think it is possible. And I think this is that belief that is driving the way in which we're designing the world now, that we can fundamentally change materials, change our energy, change our resources, change the very space that we live in, even to the extent of possibly moving to another planet. But looking back onto the surface of our planet and looking down onto our continents, we see those billions of specks of light, which represents the urbanized areas of our planet. And that in itself is an incredible design, an incredible integration of technology, science, and design. And these cities are now beginning to evolve into what we call smart cities. And smart cities is a starting point for a lot of my work, because what I call cybertecture is in fact all of the elements that could come together to create a smart city, whether it is a building, a car, an interior space, a device that you wear on your body. Together it becomes a smart city. I put this slide up because before I go off too much into this realm of design and technology, all of the wow and gizmo, I've come to discover the reason why I'm passionate about what I'm doing. And the reason that drives me is the fact that I realize that everything we do should fundamentally be about the alleviation of suffering. So on our planet, we're faced with many problems. The class divide, resource depletion, climate change, political instability, food shortage, everything. And everything that we do with technology and design and cybertecture could go some way to alleviating the suffering that is being felt by so many people around the world. And whether or not we're doing a luxury piece of design or a very practical, very down-to-earth piece of design, using technology, we can have a fundamental positive effect. And that's what I want to do. So in order to achieve the dreams that I have, and I'm still in the midst of that journey, I have learned to partition my life, in terms of my work life anyway, between 4 entities. The 4 entities are, the first one is James Law Cybertecture, which is my design company, which is very much focused on architecture in the realm of cybertecture. And then another company, which has only just recently been launched, called Cybertecture X, is a new style company like the Google of smart cities, where we design and build new technologies and new innovations that we feel will fundamentally alleviate suffering. The third is Cybertecture for Humanity, which is an NGO. Actually, my co-partner and founder is here, Oliver. We aim to use a platform for using design to help people alleviate suffering and to bring solutions to the problem. And last but not least, an education program for young children around the world to learn about design, have a chance to immerse themselves in the passion for innovation and engineering so that they could take on this whole paradigm of designing a better world. So I'll quickly go through what we do in each of these companies and entities. So James Law Cybertecture, we've been designing buildings around the world. I say around the world, mainly Middle East, Russia, China, India, and Hong Kong. And we are well known for our kind of iconic architecture, which I hope is seen not as an egotistical kind of architect's passion, but one which is a pursuit of how to use technology to create really good buildings for the world. These are some of our completed buildings recently. For example, this is the new Deutsche Bank headquarters in India. And it's a very high-tech building, very wired-up building. It's a triple A grade building. But this is also a building very focused on the experience of people and how they can use technology to become more green. For example, the glass on this building has been specially chosen so that it has very high performance. And at the center of this building, we have a feature which is an egg that is surrounded by green balconies that allows the offices to open up and be in touch with the outside. In so many ways, technology and innovation doesn't necessarily have to be all digital or mechanical. It can also be about touch and about creating nice kind of experiences for people. The use of geometry is here because we can use the computer to sculpt the building. So the curtain wall of the building on the entrance side has this kind of cascading wave to it, which kind of announces the arrival of the people when they enter the building. Many of these things is very architectural, but they're also very technical, very technological. We use the latest software, latest 3D modeling, latest 3D printing in order to find our perfect form and solution for the architecture. And in so many ways, as an architect, I feel a tremendous responsibility because for the thousands of people who come together to build a building like this, for the tens of thousands of people that create the materials that comes together to become a building, the way in which we use the suitable technology, the suitable innovation to sculpt the spaces is a very, very big responsibility. How we can use the space efficiently, how it could be run efficiently. But I think as an architect, we always feel that we can do something for the world. We can create something that is symbolic of optimism, symbolic of a dream. So here you can see I'm standing on one of the balconies of the offices. I'm looking out onto the park next door, and I can see this egg, which is symbolic of this part of the town. And the building has become a kind of like a civic symbol for that district in Mumbai. And this is a space inside the egg itself, which is used for all sorts of different things, boardrooms, communal areas, meeting rooms, etc. And this is a sky lobby that you arrive in. So the building elevates you up to a sky lobby. And then this ring is actually a very ingenious piece of engineering. It's the biggest structural ring beam in the world for a building. And it holds the top of the building that kind of opens up the space so that light comes into the lobby and you can also see the park behind. And then these are the lobby spaces. We try to sculpt them so that they're very enjoyable, very warm. They're like a series of cascades. They were actually kind of inspired by my childhood visits to some of the paddy fields in China, where you get the continuous landscape as contoured paddy fields, and you get people traveling through them, and so the lobby is not constrained and it's not kind of tight, it is a flowing space. So this is very architecture, and many of the ways in which we've designed this have been to use technology. So here we use a lot of 3D printing where we're developing the shape of the building. We were using a lot of kind of virtual reality. We were doing a lot of walkthroughs through the space, trying different materials, and even the lighting. We have some lighting designers here in the room tonight. Working with them, they use a lot of software to help us design the lighting. Another building that we just finished is a huge building. This is 3 million square feet. So that's pretty big even by Dubai standards. And it's a building which, again, very glassy, very modern, very kind of sleek, but it's focused much more this time on an intelligent facade, which we use a lot of computing to develop. So this skin has these moving louvers all over it that can change its kind of angle of shade depending on the season and the time and the sun conditions to keep the building cool. So we are at this point in time where glass buildings have always been the dream of modern architecture, but they are not very nice to do or for people to work in when it's too sunny. So we've had to develop these innovations with the skin. And we believe that one of the big upcoming advances in architecture is actually the skin of the building. I mean, the shape of the building is not so important, it's the skin of the building. And there's a lot of research going on at the moment, learning from biomimicry of plants and even human skin about how a building can breathe, how a building can adapt, how a building can perspire in order to keep its residents and inhabitants safe and cool inside. And the big announcement a month ago was that it's now the Facebook headquarters for Asia. So Facebook has been working with us for about 2 years on some of the layouts inside, and it was announced to be Facebook's headquarters. So we're very happy about that. Okay, so quickly back to Dubai. Just like Anders said, we have a destiny here with Dubai. I've been here coming in and out since 2005. When I first came, I was invited to join a competition for a building in Dubai, in Business Bay, and I was up against 2 grandmasters. One was Norman Foster, and the other was Zaha Hadid, who had started the competition ahead of me. But the owner of the developer, Mehdi Amjad of Omniat, gave me the chance to compete. And on the flight back out of Dubai, I had to think quickly about an idea. So I thought, oh, wow, I was listening to my iPod at that time. I thought, wow, wouldn't it be amazing if we took the technological analogy of an iPod and created a building out of it, a building that you could program, a building that would know who you are, can store your data, can store your lifestyle, and really adapt to you. So using the iPod as the example, I came up with this design. This is currently called the Pad, but the building was actually initially called the iPad. And the story goes like this. Back in 2005, when I entered the competition, I named it iPad, and the building was subsequently, well, we won the competition, and Omniat launched it as Cityscape, calling it iPad, and successfully sold quite a few apartments. Then we got a letter from a certain fruit company called Apple, and asking us very kindly, would you mind changing the name? So in discussions with Omniat, we said, fine, let's change the name. Of course, we weren't going to fight them, and they changed it to The Pad. But this animation I dug out from our archives. This is the animation I submitted for the competition that managed to win over the other 2 architects. So this is a very old animation. And it was still called the iPad. There should be sound for this, but don't worry, it's just music, so I can talk it through. So the building sits on the creek in Business Bay, and you can see from the structure, it looks like an iPod. It has that kind of sleek, simple form to it. And the building has a kind of non-podium, a podium that is podium and not podium with a cantilever swimming pool. And then at that time, the glazing was designed to have an interactive LED facade, which was very advanced in those days. And the design was supposed to change color depending on the weather or the traffic conditions or the pollution conditions of Dubai. And we would draw that information from the internet and actually make the elevation of the building change color. So at that time, it's still called iPad. The other thing about the building is you can see it's slanted. So if you go down to Business Bay now, you see the structure completed. It is a building that slants exactly at 6.5 degrees, exactly the same as the original iPod slanting in the docking station when you were charging it. And the building structure is very conventional, but very efficient. And this is also a philosophy of ours. We don't want to make too curvy a building, too complex a building, because it will be very expensive to build and to maintain. But the jazzy things actually happens inside the building. We really wanted to create some unique approaches to the inside of the building. So original concept was that the structure gets built and then each apartment would be prefabricated and literally slotted into the building directly from the factory. This has not been carried forward because it's too expensive, too difficult. But we believe that one day this is the way to build. Other aspects for the residents was that the bathroom should not just be a bathroom, but should be something that can monitor your health. So that we came up with an idea that the mirrors of the bathroom could actually help you know the state of your health, even back 10 years ago. Now it's more common. We had ideas about dislocated reality, where there'll be a projection system on the blinds of your room so that you could feel that you're in Dubai, but you can also feel that you're in Paris. So there'll be a live stream from Paris or any other city to give you that view. And then also this concept of linking your apartment through telecommunication so that you can always be in touch with your friends and your family in a way that at that time, even smartphones could not do. And now you can do it. We had other ideas about the space. You can see the lighting here is very kind of futuristic. It changes color depending on the attributes you set. For example, you can set it to the stock market. So if the stock market tanks, your apartment will turn red and tell you quickly to sell. Or you can set it to your phone. So if your girlfriend is calling you and your wife is about to pick up the phone, you can see that it's changed a certain color. Other gimmick ideas, which was going to be built, was that the living room actually had a turntable so that you can actually change the configuration of your room without moving the furniture. You can actually have the space move around with you. Many of these technologies have unfortunately not been carried forward, but in a way, the building was a little bit too advanced for its day anyway. I think Anders and his team would have been facing like a moonshot kind of challenge to put that together in a practical and affordable way. I think what is being done by ikonhouse now and soon to be installed is a much more practical and much more usable set of technologies. So these are the drawings of the building. The building slants at 6.5 degrees. I've checked with the Guinness World of Records. We are the most slanted tower in the world. We are 0.5 degree slanted more than Leaning Tower of Pisa. But the Leaning Tower of Pisa apparently is still leaning more and more every century. So they would beat us one day, I think. Yeah. And so this is the model that was first launched at Cityscape. It was a huge model, about 4 meters high, and we shipped that from China. And these are the renderings of the building. So the building, essentially, the shape hasn't changed, but the glazing and the pattern of the lighting has changed for budgetary reasons. And the apartments inside will probably have a slightly different design. These are the original designs with the turntable. The turntables are gone. This is the clubhouse with a flowing swimming pool that cantilevers out over the creek. And we even had ideas of nap pods with oxygen links here, so you can take a nap and get some oxygen inside your body. So these are some of the photos from Business Bay today. Not today, a few months ago, but you can see that it's reached the top of the building, and it kind of sits slightly slanted from the vertical. Actually, my dear little friend, Lauren, who's always joking at me as the architect who designed slanted buildings, she actually said, isn't it a bit dangerous? Like if you're standing inside, everybody's like slanted like this. And I was trying to tell her, no, the floors are still horizontal. They're not slanted. Okay. So during the crisis in 2008, so many of our projects, along with many architects and developers' projects, stopped. But we were lucky to have a few revitalized again back in 2011. This is another project. This is a project in Abu Dhabi called Sky Gardens Tower. It's a very interesting design. It's not like the iPad in the sense it's using a lot of technology. But what it does is it uses a very interesting new glazing system and cladding system, which is prefabricated, a bit like what we were trying to do with the apartments of the pad, but we're now doing it on the skin of this building. And also we introduce villas in the center of the tower in order to break up the mass of the tower. And these spaces are absolutely beautiful. I was down there just yesterday again, going up to these spaces, and you're like elevated 10 floors, 15 floors, 20 floors up in the sky, and you'll have a garden in the sky. So these are the kind of new kind of cladding. Again, this has been done using a kind of new software paradigm called BIM, which is building information modeling. So the whole building has been designed in the computer and coordinated, and that part of the data for creating the cladding of the building is sent to the factory, and the factory then fabricates the cladding. And then these are the Sky Gardens, which are incredible spaces, and they're very, very nice because the building has been designed so that it's self-shading. So the mass of the building is creating the shade over these areas. So you feel very cool, you feel the air coming through, really, really lovely. And again, I'd like to stress, Cybertecture isn't just about putting a lot of technology in the building, but it's also about sensible use of the environment and how to create nice spaces for people. So this is taken a few months ago. We're a bit more ahead now in the cladding, but the project has really speeded up because the contractor bought the project from the original owner, so they had the impetus to finish it. And this is the cladding system now going up. So you can see the tower actually has no external wall. There's no external parapet because the entire piece is like a boat is bolted onto the external side of the building. So it's a very kind of prefabricated approach. Just quickly, some other projects. We're doing many different high-rises around the world. Some are getting built and some are not getting built. This one we hope will be getting built soon. This is a kind of like a dancing tower for a Bollywood company, and they wanted a tower which is very exuberant, just like a Bollywood movie, and so they will want a building which has a structure that could dance around. So this is all structural, and again using very sophisticated software, not us using it, but our engineers, which is OV Arab. They're able to create almost like an artistic frame to carry a building without the need for columns inside the building. So it's really expressing the sculpture of the building as the structure of the building. These are the interiors. And perhaps our most innovative project at the moment is this office building, which is in the shape of an egg. This building is really unique because it uses an entirely new kind of structural system where the whole building has no columns and is entirely supported by its exoskeleton steel shell. Why we did that was for two reasons. One was that we wanted uninterrupted space inside the office so people can have total flexibility. And the other thing is that we started to develop this concept of trying to maximize the volume of the building, but minimize the minimize the surface area of the building. So we try to save material. So we know an organic form is more efficient at doing that than an orthogonal form. And the other innovation behind this building is that it looks like it is kind of like jutting up towards the sky, and it's not just doing that because of aesthetic reasons or architect's whim reasons. This actual angle has been calculated as the most efficient angle of attack for dealing with the sun. So just like the space shuttle, when it enters into the atmosphere of the Earth, it has to fly at a certain angle in order to get the most optimum thermal performance. This egg has a nose cone which is facing the hottest azimuth of the sun, and we introduced nature there to absorb the heat of the building. And so the form of the building is very innovative. It slants, again, at a specific angle. I know my building seems to slant all the time, but this one is slanting deliberately for this place, and it would slant differently if it was built in a different city. And so I believe that this particular project is really an example of this symbiosis between design, architecture, technology, engineering, and a kind of reverence to nature by using the latest kind of construction techniques. We are not doing this as a glass building just because we want it to be aesthetically glass. We're choosing glass which has a certain frit on it, that has certain thermal performances, and some of the panels, if the budget will allow us, will actually even generate energy. So the skin of this building, some of the top parts of this building, the glass will have PV dots inside the glass to generate energy. And to rationalize all of that glass, our facade designers basically had to work out a geometry to deal with the curve of the building, but at the same time try to minimize the number of different pieces of glass. So again, our philosophy is not to waste and not to make it too complicated. Even though it looks sophisticated, we must keep it simple. And to generate good spaces for people. So here, one of the decks of the building, people can come out of the office, have some fresh air. And the nice thing is, under this wooden deck of this building, we are actually flowing some of the potable water from the usage of the building through the roots of these plants, and actually gets cleansed, and then we can reuse the water again in the building. Other projects with a similar philosophy, so we carry some of our philosophies over to other projects. This is the new India Convention Center, which we won in a competition, and we hope to start work on this next year. This project, again, is similar in terms of having a glass skin, having a skin, but we've taken this one stage further here. We're working with a company in China to make this entire skin out of plastic. So this building will be an air-inflated plastic building, and we're trying to make it lightest building in the world of its type and its size. So it looks like a giant balloon landing on the surface. And there's many reasons for that. If the building is lighter, it is probably using less materials. If it is lighter, it is probably not needing very heavy foundations. And in theory, when you demolish it, you don't have to take away so much materials. So that's the approach that we're using for this particular building. And it's like evolving from project to project, but carrying those philosophies of cybertecture, merging intelligence and technology together. Okay, that's the architecture. I'll move on to the kind of the really, I think, the cool stuff. This is where the company has some fun. So Cybertecture X. So Cybertecture X, we are focused on creating those elements that come together along with other vendors, along with other designers, to create what we call the smart world. So the smart world is like this diagram where we are able to absorb information, learn about the city, manage people's lives in a more holistic and more safe way. Our first project and our first product is we launched an intelligent mirror. Actually, this intelligent mirror was inspired by the pad building for OmniAt. There wasn't available a mirror that could do that. So we spent 3 years of our own time and our own investments, and we developed this now. So in this video, the lady there is my wife, so it's very authentic. And so the mirror, when you stand in front of it, it can be controlled by a smartphone or by the remote control. In your reflection, it augments your reflection with additional information. It has a health app that is run from a sensor pad on the floor that monitors things like a BMI, your weight, etc. About 8 different health characteristics. And then it shows it to you graphically, but also syncs it to the internet. And you can share that with your other health devices. By itself, it is just a mirror. So everybody has a mirror at home. So it's a very ubiquitous thing. It's like a silent design. But we have different apps that help you exercise, help you understand the health of yourself and your family. And we really was trying to do something which I think is now available on smartphones, but we put all of those functionalities onto a mirror. And we started our own factory to manufacture this. We've sold about 500 of them now around the world. We're learning in a very hard way that it's a very difficult business to do, to manufacture tech. But we've done this project as a test for ourselves because we really want to become like an Apple. We really want to become like Google. And so doing this was a big risk for us, but we learned a lot, and hopefully we can now take it into the next generation of this product and make it mass. So keep an eye out in the stores for it. Another thing that we're making and we're launching in December this year is the world's first mass available aluminium portable house. This is a portable unit which is 400 square feet, and you can buy this and we will deliver to you anywhere in the world. It is 100% aluminium, including the finishes inside. Why it is aluminium is we believe that this will become the new building material for buildings of the future, because it's light, it's strong, but it's also highly recyclable. So when you buy this house from us, within 6 years, if you sell it back to us, we'll give you 60% of your buy price, because we will recycle the aluminium, and we probably will make a profit because of the rising mineral costs. And so this is an animation to show you the house. It gets delivered by truck. It can also be delivered by helicopter, because it's less than 10 tons. And it is an open space with a fitted kitchen, bathrooms, and then you can put lovely ikonhouse furniture inside and make it your own style. The finish outside the building is a brushed aluminium, similar to the Apple MacBooks, not quite as high quality, but we're trying to make it look like an Apple MacBook. And why it is 400 square feet is because it fits on the back of a lorry trailer, but also we've done some studies that in the future, as cities become more dense, more people, we won't be able to afford to live in giant villas or big apartments. It's to be too expensive and too wasteful of space. So we're making this as a model house to challenge how people will live in the future. And whilst you can buy an individual house, we can also create pod houses like this. So pod buildings like this. So in the future, you have your own pod, but then you'll be able to plug it into an infrastructure, have water, have electricity, have data, but it'll be your own pod, and basically your house will be similar to your car. You'll be paying for a parking space as opposed to an expensive piece of real estate. That's our concept. Other things that we've been doing is we've been working on a smart city monitoring system, which is created out of smart totem poles. These totem poles, when placed around the city, helps the city monitor everything from traffic to pollution, security, danger signs, etc. You can count the speed of cars, you can count the number of people, etc. And we've actually started to sell them as well. So this is the first ones being sold to the Hong Kong government, and it's now being installed around Hong Kong. So we developed this hardware and this software in a way where, in the sense, we didn't start off as a technological company. We were a design company. But this is also a new trend now, where design companies, just like ikonhouse, they're designing new products and new services. They're putting together, system integrating different technologies, available parts together to create a solution. And that's what a lot of designers like us are doing. We imagine it, and now we have the tools and the kit of parts to make it happen. Another thing that we've been working on is a big, massive building down near the World Expo. It is a concept for creating a new kind of city. This is a city which is 10 million square feet in area, enough for 40,000 people to live and work inside. It is inspired by our own planet. It has its own mini rivers and rainforests and power stations and kind of green systems to keep people happy inside. This is the big canyon communal space inside. So there's a lot of research now into thinking, oh, maybe the city of the future will not be the grid where we buy plots, where we buy a plot and we build a unique building, which is using a lot of energy and resource, but perhaps in the future we'll be living in what we call ultra-dense megastructures, so that we can save a lot of our resources. So here you see this river that's running through this valley is actually recycling over 10 million cubic meters of water a year for all of the residents inside this building. And we also grow our own plants. We can't feed everybody, but we grow plants on the southern and western sides of this building, just like the equator and the tropical zones of our planet. And we shield ourselves from the sun by having these plants, but also giving them as a bit of an oasis for people to visit when they're living here. And go on now to the last two things. Very close to my heart. I mean, I think once you pass a certain age in your life, you realize that you should not just be doing things for yourself. And somehow I've come to realize that design can really change the world for the better. So Oliver and I and another friend, we started this Cybertecture for Humanity as a platform for linking people with problems, with people who are inventors and designers who have an innovative solution to solve it. And the third part of that is that we have a crowdfunding platform to try and raise money for those projects to happen. So that's Cybertecture for Humanity. And the alleviation of suffering is the most worthwhile thing we can do with design. Because whatever luxuries or whatever conveniences that we create for the people who have, at the same time we are leaving behind a remainder that is they don't have and they're suffering. And eventually that effect will knock on. And I think a lot of the political and economic instability of the world is because we're not focused on the alleviation of suffering. And so our first project, raising funds, and we are taking up the design, and then we've already found our partners for deploying it, is a new form of disaster relief shelter. So this is the typical disaster relief shelter, which is like a tent, and they're deployed everywhere around the world. We want to do a better one. And we want to use the world's most sustainable material and use a really clever design to make that happen. So we chose bamboo as our material, and we hope to bring bamboo as a solution for suffering around the world. And this is our concept. So this is now being built in a factory in China. It is a kit of parts, all entirely made out of bamboo, opaque panels and transparent panels made out of bamboo cloth. When you join them together, they start to take shape. And what they eventually come together as becomes a one-day created shelter for a family of 8, which is actually, I'll let the film do the revealing here, is a geodesic dome made out of bamboo. And this can be deployed anywhere in the world. And our concept is a very, very simple joint system able to let anybody with 1 or 2 hours of lessons to put this together. The panels are very light, so women can help men do it, older children can help do it, and then they can build the shelter very quickly. The good thing about bamboo is that it is pretty long-lasting and has a very nice humanistic touch. So instead of living under fabric for 2 years, you can live 4 years under one of these and get your community back on its feet after a disaster. The other thing that we're doing with this project is when we deliver these shelters, we also give them a box of tools which they use for building the shelter, but also the tools that they need for rebuilding their community, as well as a bag of seedlings. Those seedlings are bamboo seedlings, so they can plant next to their settlement a small plantation of bamboo, which grows extremely fast. Within a year, you have fully grown bamboo able to be used for building more shelters or for repairing shelters or perhaps even to modify shelters. So really creating a solution that is holistic in the pursuit of the alleviation of suffering. So this is some of our mock-ups, working on the joints, using the computer, using structural engineering principles that we often use in our other iconic buildings, but doing it with natural materials and in a much more humble way for people who don't have. Last but not least is another project close to my heart is annually we run an education program for kids to become passionate about design. And it's actually 10 days, it's not a week, it's 10 days. And we hope to take this around the world. We let these kids touch all the tools that we use in our office and our team the computers, the modeling machines, the 3D printers, the lathes, the cameras, the editing machines, all of that. And we let them learn from a very young age. So these kids are between the age of 11 and 17. And they're really talented. And we feel that if we are to design a better world, in a way we have to kind of seed the next generation in the early days for the passion for design. So I end the talk now with a video, which is the whole 10 days compressed down to about 3 minutes. So we've done a stop motion camera thing to show you what the kids do, and I'll talk you through some of that. So the week starts with a get-together where we talk about architecture, technology, and innovation. And then we jump right in by having a lot of discussion and workshops about how we are designing the world, why we're designing the world, etc. They immediately sketch, discover their own passions and ideas, work out what they want to do in their lives to achieve as designers of the future. They work as teams. We really promote and tell them that in this world, you have to learn to work together as a team. There's no more of this kind of iconic designer who just controls everything. So they draw together on a single roll of tracing paper, and they share the sketches and overlay the sketches. They're constantly working out problems. We set them this year to design a Cybertecture building for a new kind of hospital. So they had to learn everything from architecture to technology. We even teach them electronics. You'll see them in a moment. They're doing soldering. They're doing electronics software programming. They're working with motors. They're building models, etc. And what they actually come up with is not far from what my full-time team comes up with. And if we had started at their age, I think we'll be much more accomplished. So here, they're already working on circuitry, writing programs. And in the end, the models that they built had buildings which rotated and followed the sun, can be activated by smartphone, can be controlled by voice, can change color. Really amazing. And these are kids doing it. And with a bit of help and support, they can really take that forward in their career and be jump-started into a realm of cybertecture that is, I think, way ahead of what we are currently doing now. So yeah, it's a very intensive 10 days. They don't quite move around as fast as that in the studio, but it's a non-stop. And we end the week with a presentation of the model. So I just hope we will run this until we see some of the models. Okay, so the kind of non-stop. So they start building models. We really believe in making things. It's not just making a nice picture and an animation is okay. If you want to do something, you have to prove it to us. You have to make a model. You have to make the animatronics behind it so that it actually works. So they get given a big stack of foam. They cut it. They develop it. They think about what the program should be doing to make people happy in the hospital. So this team was building something a bit similar to my technosphere. So they're building a giant globe building, but their building is really amazing. It actually rotates to a sun sensor, so it actually can keep the patients facing the sun all the time, most of the time, so they're getting natural sunlight and be really kind of healthy. And this other building has a system where the top opens up and has natural ventilation. So the kids have a lot of fun doing it. Okay, so that's the Young Architects program. So that ends my talk. So I really appreciate you coming tonight. Thank you so much. Thank you.